Okay, good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to the August 10th, 2016 meeting of the Plain Township Zoning Commission. It is now 6:02, and I call the meeting to order. And why don't we just call the roll?
Mr. Harrison.
Here.
Mr. Crawford.
Here.
Mr. Rambacker.
Here.
Mr. Wolf. And Mr. Geovasis. Mr. Seberg.
I am present. Mr. Zoning Director or Mr. Ferrara, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, Brian.
Okay, before we go further, that is, before we go to the approval of the minutes, I just want to know or want the record to reflect that indeed the Oakwood Square application has been formally withdrawn.
Yes, it has.
Okay,
It was withdrawn on Thursday of last week.
okay, and that was done by what mechanism?
Mr. Glentz emailed me a letter stating that at this time he wished to withdraw.
If I could inquire, was that the email you forwarded to us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just, maybe because I'm a lawyer, I'm a little bit of a stickler about this. Was the term withdrawn actually used in the email?
No, it was not.
Okay. We've had this issue before, whether and when something has actually been withdrawn. Sometimes on the board as a member, I'm finding out literally moments or hours before the meeting that something has been withdrawn. Sometimes it's on the basis of a verbal that we anticipate will be followed by a written formality so that we have something in our file that excuses us from hearing a duly filed application which has been tabled and advertised and set for hearing. I would propose that we develop a form sort of like we have an application form, that if an applicant's going to withdraw an application, they should specify the application number, the date that it's of the withdrawal, and it should be signed formally by the applicant. We should have that in our possession to document the withdrawal before we actually assume something is withdrawn.
That can be done.
And just for the record, I concur that whether it's a form or a letter, it should contain all the information that the member Harrison has mentioned together with the signature of the applicant. Okay, with that, I would like to go to the meeting minutes for July 13 and July 27. And Mr. Crawford, you prepared?
Yeah, thank you. I would note for the record today we have, I think as I understand it, we have a quorum. Secondly, I have submitted proposed minutes for the meeting of July 13, 2016, as well as the working session of July 24. If I could ask for separate motions in regard to those, I would submit them both for approval.
Motion to approve the minutes of the July 13, 2016 meeting as submitted.
Do we get a second?
I don't know if I should be seconding my own minutes, but I will.
I'll second it so we can discuss.
Thank you.
Okay, discuss.
Minor correction, I think the date of the next meeting was the 27th of July, not the 24th.
Correct.
And the one reference to the discussion about tabling the application to rezone that was filed by Nickel Plate. there's a sort of vague reference that the applicant was withdrawing at that time, and that was inaccurate. I believe there was discussion that his application, he realized, was insufficient in that it didn't have a signature and some other attachments, but that they were in the process of wanting to get a discussion started, so they filed it prematurely and would be addressing those deficiencies. And so at that time, I asked the applicant if they would agree to table it, and with the agreement of the applicant, that's why we moved to table it.
Yeah, but we actually, there's no motion or vote on tabling the application. I went back and read and looked at the...
Really?
Yes, that's why I wrote it up that way. I could take the words withdrawn out, because I mean, there was some discussion of it being withdrawn, there was some discussion about tabling it, and then we just went right into a discussion about the merits of the...
I'm not sure we voted on tabling it.
Well, I can look again, but I watched the whole, listened and watched the thing again in preparing these minutes. Because that kind of came across to me as I didn't have any notes as to who had moved or seconded the motion to table. I didn't have that, and then I couldn't find it.
Was there document, or was there at least an interchange where we had the applicant stating on the record that he wished it to be tabled?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why I put that in bold.
All right, well,
I remember.
what you guys, is that sufficient? I mean, how do you, we've rarely tabled anything, and I don't know that.
Well, I think I think we didn't actually have a vote, but by doing it, we effectively tabled it.
Okay.
For whatever that's worth. I mean, I was surprised when I was looking through my notes, that's why I went back and watched the whole thing. I didn't find where we made a motion. So, there was a discussion, hey, maybe we should table this, then we talked to the applicant's representative, and there was, you know, I didn't sign this, it wasn't signed in the wrong place, da 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 da. And then you asked him the question, would you like it to be tabled, and he said yes, and then we never voted on it.
Okay, so I guess it's academic now since it's withdrawn, but maybe I should have been cleaner about that and actually made it a motion. But at least the minute should reflect that it was tabled at the request of the applicant.
Okay.
Can we say that? Would that accurately explain what happened?
Applicant consented to or agreed to.
I don't think he consented. I think he asked for it. We asked him if that's what he wanted because it was insufficient.
Applicant's requested matter to be tabled. Tabled. But board proceeded to what?
Accepted the request.
And I believe we tabled it then, as Ian said, yeah, by unanimous.
I just put it by acclamation.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that.
That's one of two instances where we didn't vote on
Yeah,
it.
if you'll accept that amendment to the minutes, I would have no problem in approving them as amended.
Absolutely, no problem. Mr. Ambacher?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and with that amendment and the consent of the movement, Mr. Ferrari, can you call the roll on the July 13 minutes?
Mr. Harrison?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Reinbacher?
Yes.
Mr. Seaver?
Yes. Now we go to July 27.
Yeah, could I have that back? What I passed around? Yes, the fancy paperclip.
Motion to approve the minutes of the July 27, 2016 meeting as submitted.
Second, for purposes of discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, discuss away.
Ian, I'm just not sure we have the attachment, meaning the text of the proposed new R7 that actually got sent to RPC, and I just want to make sure that what got sent to RPC is what you have attached to it.
And this didn't come from me, this came from Tom. I came in and asked him for that, everything tonight, because I was unclear from when I got the email from Tom saying, here's what he understood our thing to be. I went through it right away, and there were a couple changes that I proposed, and I sent it right back to Tom within like 10 minutes, maybe within half an hour. And so I asked him, and he said he had made those, he accepted my adjustments and sent those along to the Regional Planning Authority. That's my understanding.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask you, because this is the first time I've seen this,
Okay?
and I'm wondering, did we get the language change on the drive-up or drive-throughs? Is that in here? Because I know we spent a significant amount of time on drive-throughs not being permitted except as a conditionally permitted use and only under certain restrictions, and then we identified numerous sections that would...
Well, I think that the main change was on the very first paragraph. I think we talked about such plan at the very end of the first paragraph. The one you showed me with, I changed it. Well, but there was some red on it that you showed me before. And there was also the way Tom had written up outdoor displays. Not exactly how I had it, so I suggested a difference there, and I think those are the two main changes, if I'm not mistaken.
Because I'm looking at J, drive-in, drive-up, and that whole discussion we had about it not being permitted as a principal use, but being permitted as a conditionally permitted accessory use. Can you tell me where that's at?
That would be on page, well, it was on page 3 originally.
Now, we're on page 5 under conditional uses, and it's not there.
All right, let me look at mine. I've got mine. Here's the one I was working off of when I was proposing to Tom. The first thing I said was, and this is reflected on Tom's version, so I'll have to double check against this new one. Yes, okay. On section 709.1 purpose, the one Tom sent us on about the fourth line down where it says, first word in the little sentence is structure. That now has a period there. The version that Tom sent had additional language which we had said, take it out. And that's reflected on my my official copy and what Tom wrote on his once he got my notes.
Yeah, but that's not what...
No, I'm just trying to show you what the changes are. I can go through them and try and tell you what they were.
Any chance we could make a copy of what actually we're approving so we actually look at it?
Well, I'm just trying to compare what parking or drive-in, yeah, all right. On page 2, you're talking about drive-in up or through facilities are not permitted as principal uses. That's the language we agreed to.
Right. As either or for principal or accessory. But my question went to a conditionally permitted accessory use. We added, I thought, and should have been at page 5, item C, conditionally permitted uses. I thought we spent significant time.
We did, number 5.
Then we went through all of the...
Yeah, the version that's attached says drive-in, up or through facilities as accessory uses are subject to subsections 102, 103, 104, 105.
Okay, you're reading something that I don't have in front of me.
Well, I'm trying to,
Which one do you have in front of you?
The one that was in the packet.
Oh, that, Vicky put the wrong ones in. I've got these here. I apologize.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you had.
I didn't realize those were even in there.
Oh, okay, well,
Can you
so
send
we
those
just have a
someplace?
maps of
So we don't get 'em.
communication issue here, go ahead.
Okay, this is, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna put a line through the one that does not apply, so that
Thank
it gets
you.
thrown away.
This is what RPC sent us when they initially, the staff looked at the zoning text, and they have corrections on it. This will be vet, if you'll pass that down.
All right, hold on, time out. First step was, what did we send to regional planning?
Right.
This is what we sent to regional,
And they wrote on it.
and they wrote it.
Well, let me see how that matches up with what you gave me, what I was proposing to be attached to the minutes. Okay. Yeah, okay. Without going through it page by page, I can do that. I feel relatively confident here. What I've attached to the minutes is what was sent to regional planning based on my few things I did. That's why I was trying to pass it along earlier. I think you will find the things you're looking for are in fact there, and there were a couple that I highlighted and made sure that based on what we sat here and read into the record was what Tom sent through.
Tom, so is that, okay, what
Sure.
Ian has attached to his copy of the minutes is what was sent to RPC,
This is what was sent to RPC,
what we were
yes.
about to receive?
Yes.
With RPC's notes
With
on it.
RPC's notes on them.
We can deal with those.
And then I've got,
What's this? It looks like two different things.
no, same thing.
Just didn't have a cover sheet.
This has got an email on it from RPC explaining what's going on.
Here, you guys can have those.
And then I made almost all of the corrections. I didn't know if you guys, the corrections that RPC has on there, I put them on this page. And if you wanted to go through this and take a look and see if you wanted to actually make the changes that they requested.
Well, before we go further, what I wanted to say is that on the agenda, we are still on the
Approval of the minutes.
approval of the minutes.
Oh,
So all that matters right now
yeah, is that the same?
is that Ian is attaching to the minutes what we had sent on, what we agreed on here and sent on to
And
RPC.
since we're still in discussion, first of all, thank you very much for being the secretary and helping me go through this, because I did this for a year and a half.
I understand.
And a lot of it has to do with going back and looking at the transcript and sorting out. And especially when we have such detail with a text amendment and, you know, a 12-page approximate document, it's important to me to see this and be able to digest it and not have to come to a meeting where we have other really important business to do and go through line by line to make sure what important business we did last time is accurately reflected. So with that in mind, I'd be willing to postpone approval of the minutes
Sure.
to allow us to discuss further, or to another time, or request that if we're going to actually approve something that's a text change, that we actually request that we actually get the actual text change verbiage in the form of a minutes well before the meeting, so we have time to do it.
Okay.
And I understand the logistics this time. Everybody's trying to push this through. I mean, it's very unusual for us to have meetings less than 2 weeks after in sequence with multiple topics and intricate changes to text and whatnot. And
Well, what I was trying to express, what I did when we had that long meeting, I pulled out a brand-new copy of what the proposal had been. And I wrote the secretary's copy, and I went through it, as we went through it, to make all the changes that we talked about making. I tried to reflect them on here. And then Tom put something together relatively quickly, and as soon as I got that, I stopped everything else and tried to review it based on what should have been changed. So I'm relatively confident that we've got our changes there, but I'm also completely in agreement with what, if you guys want to table that motion until we're clear that that really is exactly what we proposed to, that we voted on, I'm happy with that too. I'm not trying to push anything through. But my concern is, I was walking in here, I didn't know until I talked to Tom what had been sent in, Tom's original version, or if he had sent a follow-up based on my corrections, which he says that's the case.
Well, let me verify. You forwarded the result of our meeting, last meeting, to RPC.
That's correct. We made the corrections and forwarded.
When you say we,
The zoning department.
the zoning department
I
made
the
notes
corrections.
to, according to what you believe were the edits we approved.
Yes.
That's it, okay, right. And you're saying sometime after that, you and he actually talked to make sure the notes you had were consistent with what he had sent to RPC?
No, but what I'm saying is, we got the email that everybody got. It said, here's what I'm sending to regional planning. Or actually, it may have said sent. And I immediately stopped, reviewed it, compared my notes from the special secretary copy I made. Found a couple of changes that I thought were appropriate, and I made those and sent a version to Tom saying, here's what I think we really did. And I don't know what happened after that until I talked to Tom today. And I think he made those changes based on what I'm seeing here.
I made the changes. I didn't send anything until I checked with you to make sure that
Okay.
they were all there.
Okay, and
Once I made
I
those-
was not involved in that loop, was I? It was between you and he. You said everybody got sent the
That's my understanding, all the members of the group, I thought the email
Everybody, yeah.
was all, everybody got it.
Did you get it? Because I don't think I did.
I thought everybody was listed on the
Well,
minute.
here's the key. What you are attaching to the minutes is what we discussed.
To the best of my abilities as the secretary, trying to keep it all straight.
Irrespective of.
I could be wrong,
Went
even-
to RPC.
Right.
Okay, then I'm going to call the question on the approval of the minutes. People can vote yes or no, but
And that's what you've attached to the copy of the minutes, what your best recollection is of what we had?
Yes.
And that has the stuff about the drive-ups and the...
Yes.
Okay.
call the roll.
Sorry.
Mr. Harrison,
Abstain.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Rambacker,
Yes.
and Mr. Seaberger.
Make it unanimous, yes. Okay, unfinished business. Mr. Zoning Director, unfinished business?
No, there is no unfinished business.
Okay, and why don't we move to the new business? The legal ad, I don't think we need to read the legal ad. And this is Amendment 565-16, proposing a new R7 classification. We have before us the RPC staff recommendation. It is very lengthy. I don't feel a need to read it into the record other than to state that it's here on file with the zoning department, and anybody wishing to read the RPC staff recommendation may do so. I will say that at the conclusion of their two-page letter of yesterday, staff recommends approval of a modification of the proposed text changes, and they have submitted to us a marked up copy of what we submitted to them. So, nobody is here to be sworn in.
I would make a note that we all just got a lot of this material today, including myself.
It was difficult even getting it all
Right.
together today.
Not trying to say anything bad about anybody. We're moving along here, and getting information as we go.
Okay, so, here's what I propose. They have given us their marked up a copy. We can go about it one of two ways. One is we can have a motion to approve what we submitted to them and discuss that, or we can defer a motion and go through their handwritten suggestions and see what feedback, if any, we get from the members of the commission. So who wants to do what?
Well, for discussion purposes, I would move that we approve the text change for amendment number 565 as this commission prepared to submit to the RPC initially, for discussion purposes.
Second.
Okay, that motion is now on the floor.
Hold on here.
Okay.
So we're gonna, a motion to approve what we've already submitted.
In the form we submitted it.
Okay. And that was moved by John and seconded by Steve.
That is correct.
Okay.
And now, discussion can go in any form you want. We can go straight to a vote, or we can look at their comments.
I would suggest we just go through their comments and blow through them.
Good with that?
Before we start doing that, a quick question. Does the staff recommendation equate to the recommendation of the Regional Planning Commission, or did the Regional Planning Commission actually take some action at their August 9th meeting last night and either adopt or not adopt the staff recommendation?
We have no idea. I've been trying to contact RPC all day long. The two people that apparently know, is Rachel Fercioni and Emma, I forget her last name, were not in their offices all day. I was told they were in the building, so they must have been in meetings. I don't know. I left messages to get called back and got nothing. So I have no information about it.
My inclination right now is the application for the plan from Nickel Plate Properties or Realty has been withdrawn. We're getting a lot of information, new information and suggestions, and of course, and actually on my copy, I don't even have all of the notes.
I know,
because of the way copy.
that's the way I got it.
And as much as I'd like to consider this and send it through, are we really just spinning our wheels here? We don't even know what the Regional Planning Commission's official, position is on this. Wouldn't it be nice to know what that is and then maybe get all this information in a form we can read and take our time to look at it and get back together and have maybe a legitimate conversation about it then?
Let me ask this, and either Steve, John, or Tom, you may know, and I knew at one time, is a recommendation, one way or another, some kind of recommendation from RPC, something that must be before this commission can act?
You had, yes.
Is it statutorily required?
Yeah, I believe it is.
I believe to the contrary, but
Oh, I thought it'd be,
I know we can ignore it,
yes,
so,
but I believe you've got to wait.
and I don't take lightly ignoring the recommendation of a professional body designed to actually give us another resource or a criteria to help us assess the appropriateness of any action we're taking. So the answer to your question, Mr. Chairman, is I don't know. I I'm inclined to want to hear it. I don't know that I've ever seen a recommendation from the Regional Planning Commission that's different from the staff recommendation. And so therein lies the rub. I'm not sure we have it, what we're going to get out of them anyway or not. If I could ask the zoning director, is there now some sort of immediacy that requires our action now that there is an application withdrawn? Is there some immediacy that you believe would require this board to act today rather than a week from now or 2 weeks from now?
No, I think that once they withdrew that, or did not want to present their plan, I think that gave us the ability to relax a little bit and not have to rush this through like we were doing.
Well, and the reason they may have withdrawn it is because they might be expecting us to act on it today, but I don't think that's necessarily something we should base our decision on.
My sense is that they withdrew it because this doesn't exist yet.
Right.
And therefore, the quicker it exists, the quicker they will refile.
I agree, that's probably what's going on, but is that necessarily good governance on our part?
No, I'm only asking for the purposes of understanding what the best interests of the township might be, and if there's an opportunity that needs to be heard or not, whether it be a good one or a bad one, it might persuade me on when we want to, if we want to postpone this, how far out do we want to postpone it?
Let me ask this, do we have a copy of the section 51912 here that you can retrieve? Because I'd like to.
We do.
First
We do,
answer the question.
and it is in there. If I could just answer that really quickly. Mr. Glitz came in, presented a plan and a new plan. Said it was really speculative, talked about having 2 different owners and dividing the lot in 2, or the parcel in 2. They really don't know what they want to do, and so he left, telling me that they're going to come up with something new.
Well, the tail can't wag the dog.
I'll get that for you.
Thank you.
Well, and my
I
other,
don't even know why we heard the first application, because it wasn't signed, there wasn't attachments to it. The idea of presenting it to us so they could kick it around ahead of time, I thought, thank you for saying that, but I thought it was ridiculous too.
The tail can't wag the dog, especially at the risk of us passing something in haste, only to repent in leisure.
right, and I completely agree, and the other point I want to make sure is clear, like on page 4 of this proposal we're considering, at the very bottom,
You're talking about RPCs.
RPCs, the version of what we sent them with RPC's notes. The notes are cut off. I don't even know what their notes are in total. So, in total. So, I would hesitate to even try and comply with our regional planning, not even knowing what they're proposing entirely. And on top of everything else that's already happened, in terms of, I don't want anyone to think we're trying to push something through that we haven't fully considered.
Or not.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
I don't think we should.
The vast likelihood is that the regional planning accepted the recommendation of its staff, because that's 99% of the time what occurs. I'm not sure how relevant that is to tonight's discussion, but it wouldn't be it'd be piecemeal, I suppose, but some of these comments we could probably get through pretty easily
We're here.
to
We
get
may as well
a
do
jump on.
That's fine.
And I appreciate that it would be subject to us receiving a actual regional planning committee recommendation.
and I agree with what you're proposing. Section 51912E, it says the county or regional planning commission shall recommend the approval or denial of the proposed amendment. or the approval of some modification of it, and shall submit its recommendation to the Township Zoning Commission. The recommendation shall be considered at the public hearing held by the Township Zoning Commission on the proposed amendment. Well, after 20 years plus on this body, I've learned something new. So I think that,
It's influential, it's not,
but it appears to be mandatory that it be before us.
I agree with that reading.
Well, I'm happy to stay here and work on this if you guys want. I just don't know
Well,
that we're
my
necessarily.
concern is we're gonna get, we are here, this is some of the more peripheral or perfunctory stuff we can get through, maybe leaving more of the heady stuff till we actually have the recommendation.
I'm fully on board with that.
I've got, at the risk of too many new papers in front of you, I've got a edited edition based on those recommendations. There's a couple of them I have not had a chance to complete, but most of it is done. If you wanted to look at the wording, I don't know.
Okay, so let me ask you this now. Have you taken it upon yourself then to incorporate all the recommendations of RPC into a revised text that you put down on a document that you want us to look at? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, no, I have not completed the work.
Okay,
I've completed 90%, 94%.
okay. Well, that's putting the cart before the horse in my view, because number one, we haven't accepted any of the recommendations of RPC, and we don't even know what they are for sure. So this is haste.
I just wanted to make it a little bit easier for you.
I understand.
If that was possible.
Okay. In hearing my colleagues, I think what I'm hearing is that there is interest in going through at least the staff recommendations so that when we do get the final recommendations, to the extent that they are identical or similar, we can at least say we've dealt with that issue previously.
That's my feeling.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Ian,
Yes.
we're here.
Okay, so let's go 1 through 14. Is that what we're looking at now?
Pages 1 through
Are
14.
facts to be considered 1 through 14? Or are we actually going to,
You know, I thought that what John had in mind was literally looking at their handwritten
Notes.
notes.
Some of them are self-explanatory.
And adopting it,
Well, at least
or
getting.
declining to adopt it.
Right, fine.
And if we decide after 3 or 4 pages of it, we want to wrap it up for the night and defer another day, that's fine. But as I said, at least we get a jump on it.
Okay, page 1.
Okay, I got my official copy. There's so many of the same thing, I'm trying to keep it clear.
Number
straight.
one, the first comment on relative to low and medium density, I'm comfortable with the way we have it, low and medium density myself.
I would concur. Any differing opinions?
why are they even suggesting higher densities?
My guess on that would be they're used to perhaps some projects that they've run across in the city of Canton, maybe an Esta Hotel, something like that, where you've got something with 10 stories, there's 8 stories. We've limited that.
But if you look on their facts to be considered number 4, they start talking about density.
Yeah, that's
Which it might address why, it might go towards answering that question. I don't, and we talked about that very point.
Yeah, we also discussed how the computation would work of computing density,
Right.
and we were all comfortable at that point with
Low and medium.
low and medium.
I agree.
Okay,
So that's out. We're not adopting that
at this point,
at this point.
We're not taking official action,
Yeah.
but what I'm hearing in this open
there seems to be
public meeting
consensus.
is that nobody's in favor of their proposed change.
What I'm trying to keep track, I'm gonna call an official copy for draft. Okay, for next draft,
Yeah,
okay.
just date it for tonight even perhaps.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it as straight as I can, so 8, 10, 16, official copy for next draft.
Yeah, the next comment, I think, is perfectly fine. Encouragement of a more walkable, pedestrian-oriented atmosphere. Maybe instead of oriented, if that's what that says. I might use pedestrian-friendly.
Yep. I was gonna say the same thing.
Walkers
Pedestrian-friendly atmosphere.
pedestrian friendly. Okay.
Does that mean pedestrians are allowed?
They're certainly not.
That's right.
Friendly to pedestrians.
I got it, I understand.
I know. That's all right.
Next
I like
page.
that.
And John, I would recommend that you lead us through the discussion.
Yeah, let's do that.
I like the way you're starting.
Next page, project ownership. And the comment is, doesn't appear necessary to include this because they ask a rather cynical question, what's the alternative? Well, I'm okay with it the way it is because you could have someone argue that this is not something that can be presented by a public entity. That it would have to be a private entity, and I don't know we have to deal with that. It doesn't hurt to leave it in here, is my point.
Yeah, the purpose, I think we've traditionally, the PUDs are always a
Singularity of ownership.
singularity of ownership, and I think that's why B is here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're missing that, aren't they?
Yep.
And B is just saying, but that single entity can be either a public or private entity. I mean, I think it'd be, to me, B is fine.
I agree.
The only thing I would change that I overlooked before would be, we use PMUD there, where I don't think, well, maybe we do use it elsewhere, but some areas we use Planned Mixed Use Development
Put the whole
District, and others we use PMUD. I guess it's not that big a deal.
Should have 2 Ds in, shouldn't it?
I don't know what the pleasure of the members would be on that. I like to see consistency, but I'm not on it.
Well, the way to deal with that is at the very beginning, page 1709.1, where we say planned mixed-use development district, we should put a
Emphasize.
parenthetical with emphasis, yeah,
Yeah, if we did that, then
PMUD.
It is up on the top.
I know, but here we'll put it in the
it's in the
text.
body.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that addresses your concern, John.
I think so, yes. And actually, we could probably carve out about a half a page if we
Yeah,
state
you could
that
now
throughout.
use everywhere, just go through and look for planned mixed-use development district and put in PMUD everywhere. It might save you half a page. I don't know, saves the make.
Yeah, the comment on paragraph D as in David, I think it's a good comment. What I might do in there is the second sentence, the responsibility for the maintenance of all open space shall be specified by the developer within the final development plan before approval thereof. I think it's a good idea to actually have it in the plan because that's what will be passed. And for posterity's sake, it's right there, there's no question about it.
So the last sentence you would say ought to read, the responsibility for the maintenance of all open space shall be specified by the developer in its final development plan before approval thereof.
That's what I'm suggesting.
I'm good with
Define
that.
approval thereof. Okay,
Comma, before approval thereof.
period.
I'm good with that.
Okay,
Before approval thereof.
Yeah, I think we can live with the period.
I don't know, I'm gonna resist, never mind.
semicolon.
I'm just kidding.
Their comment down below that is consider sidewalk requirements. I'm not sure you can always have sidewalks in each instance.
I tend to agree with them. We need to, if there are sidewalks, they need to be pedestrian friendly as well. That means they need to be wide enough to fit people walking comfortably by each other without having to go into a narrow single file or a person in a wheelchair not being able to get through.
I think what they're saying is they have an absolute requirement that there be sidewalks.
I have to say, for myself, I was assuming there was going to be some sidewalk requirement, and that touches back to my discussion or my suggestion about when we defined outdoor open spaces
Right.
and where you could have these displays. And if they were going to put out a sidewalk, you had to do it in a wet manner that wouldn't obstruct the pedestrian traffic on the sidewalks. Yet, their comment that we didn't even actually state any sidewalk requirement
And we did.
kind of defeats my comments from last time, so.
Right, what's our threshold minimum for this district? I forget it.
Sorry, what size?
Yes. Was it a
Oh,
half
that minimum.
2 acres? You know, you could think about something like where reasonably practicable or possible sidewalks may be required. And you then leave it to, you leave it there.
Well,
In some instances, it won't be practical, and I'm not sure, you want to have the thing in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals for variance.
when you
I mean, I like the sidewalks, don't get me wrong, I'm a proponent for that, but as a requirement in each instance, I'm not so sure that works.
Do we expect there to be sidewalks, though, when, in the case of like a plaza where there are storefronts contiguous, that there will be in fact sidewalk across the front connecting them?
Well, we could say something as simple as, look, there shall be, we encourage sidewalks, particularly in the larger PMUDs. I mean, this may not be great language, but I mean, something along that.
Or maybe we could say sidewalks where practical shall be provided between all and each of the mixed uses.
What do you think, Tom?
If we're in fact.
Oh, Tom has a proposal.
What I started with here is the on-site circulation system shall be designed to provide safe pedestrian paths throughout the site and shall integrate with adjacent properties and neighborhoods. That's only the beginning of half a page that you can take a look at.
So let's take a look at that then.
That's, yeah, why don't you go ahead and share that stuff you wanted to share with us.
Okay.
You have more than one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Just while we're getting settled here, I just realized that all of these lettered items have titles, and then certain of them are not consistent after I. I don't know if that's important, but I mean, just as a matter of,
Yeah.
looks good. I mean, J, K, L, M should all have, and O should all have titles.
With the italicized.
Oh, I see, yep.
Italicized titles.
Yes.
So the title for J would be, what?
Just call it drive-ins, comma, et cetera, colon,
Okay, and then for the next, for K should be.
Address on.
Building numbers.
Building numbers?
building numbers,
And L should be
awnings. M should be floor area, or let's see, how
How about density?
density? Hold on, I gotta catch up here. Building numbers. et cetera. And accessory buildings. Oh no.
Was that really true on accessory buildings, or is that accessory buildings just for multifamily dwelling units?
Or should that be side yards or setbacks? For O.
The comma on that doesn't seem like it belongs.
You're right. O, accessory buildings,
Right. Set.
comma. The comma and the four are redundant.
So take the comma out,
Oh, yeah, right, not if they're inconsistent.
and we're gonna call that setbacks.
I'm not sure that's a setback issue.
I'm not sure either, I'm just trying to,
You could call it accessory buildings, but then it does, the way I read it, solely pertain to accessory buildings for multifamily dwelling units.
call it that.
Location of accessory building. Because that's what we're talking about, where they'll be located in terms of proximity.
Location of accessory buildings. Yes?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
What'd you get from that?
The title of O is location of accessory buildings.
Location.
I guess P would, if we're going to do anything relative to the circulation system or sidewalks, that's where it would come in, perhaps. And if that's what we're inclined to do, then we might as well hit their comment on M, which is that they think the 10 dwelling units per acre seems low.
Thought we were okay with that, and if there was a
Yeah, we talked about
variance
that.
requested, that to
Right.
be something that we look at, or that's looked at on a case-by-case basis by the BZA or the trustees. Because we don't have a situation like a nesting
Well,
hotel or whatever.
You know, and R6 is 6 units per acre. They're suggesting that the average, in their experience, the average for mixed-use developments is closer to 20 units,
Mhm.
according to their research. Well, again, you know, it's a mixed bag. If you're looking at one of these districts in a urban area, city of Canton, and you're looking at an 8-10-story building,
Yeah.
I get that,
Mhm.
but we're not that. I'd rather leave it at 10, and if someone wants to seek a variance, let them do it, but I think 10 is probably adequate for Plain Township.
Whatever we put, there is what the rule's gotta be, and I'm thinking that the developer will develop a plan to maximize the allowable amount of units, and
Assuming it can be marketed.
for their finance, yeah, well, okay, assuming it can be marketed, true enough, economic factors at all. But if we open the door to more than 10, I think we're inviting them to press the limits, unnecessarily inviting them to do that.
Well, I'm happy with 10 simply because I think that's what we gave some consideration to before. It's not like we did talk about it earlier.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was going to move on to N.
Did we take a look at L, the sidewalk? Did we
Well, I thought we might.
We're going to move that to the end.
Okay.
L is something else, L is awning, so the suggestion was to make the sidewalk P.
Yeah,
All sidewalks will become P.
we're going to talk about sidewalks as P
Okay.
in that section.
So on N then,
This one was tricky.
the lowercase but, okay. So it does not substantially impede pedestrian traffic. Well, I would probably delete substantially and maybe use the word materially. It's still vague, but that's okay because the discretion will lie with the enforcement body.
I do like their idea of saying safe wheelchair passage, so that we know that even if it might substantially impede, it's not to impede a wheelchair.
I would limit it to wheelchairs. I might just consider any disability to accommodate passage for disabled.
Okay.
All right, so how are we gonna,
What's the standard, what standard could we say for disabled individuals then? What's the standard width you would allow for a disabled individual?
A wheelchair gives a standard in its own right, a width.
I know, for example, in buildings, you have to have a 36-inch wide minimum opening to accommodate a wheelchair.
I think that's the standard, I mean,
Do we want to say no less than 36 inches, or do you not want to even go to a number?
I don't prefer to go to a number, although I recognize your point. If you say somehow bring in a wheelchair, that would set the standard in and of itself. My point was I just didn't want to limit it to a wheelchair access issue. I wanted to encompass, I want it to be friendly for to accommodate any disability, whether it's a wheelchair or otherwise.
Once you got a wheelchair going this way and a wheelchair coming this way, that's 36 plus 36, that's now 72. Should one wheelchair wait for the other?
They can take turns.
That's what I think. So I'm thinking 36 inches or wheelchair width is a nice, less vague standard. If that's what they're telling us, they don't want us to be struck down or challenged later for vagueness.
They're going to have to, the developer is going to have to comply with the ADA anyway. So, we're automatically encompassed within that without having to set our own parameters.
yeah,
Honestly, I didn't know whether that applied to outside sidewalks or not in commercial areas.
Yes,
It does.
absolutely.
Okay.
so I think we change them, we change the B and but, we add material instead of substantially, and we're done with N1.
Many of the developments use 5 to 7 feet as a standard for sidewalks.
Well, we're gonna get to
That's
sidewalks.
fine, when we get to sidewalks, but now we're talking about obstructions and how much obstruction you can have.
This is an outdoor display.
Right.
Yeah.
I think under N2, 10%, it's clerical, it's a good
Yeah.
correction.
Yeah, which pulls us to potential new P.
That's this big red thing.
Oh yeah, let me take a step back here before we get done. If we go back to A, Tom points out that maybe instead of reference to the Board of Trustees, we should be talking Board of Zoning Appeals.
That was based on the comments from this board at the last meeting.
Well, that would be a variance, wouldn't it?
It would be a variance, so Board of the Zoning Appeals, so, yeah. I would concur with that.
Okay, all right.
That we don't want the trustees to be doing a BZA job,
Exactly.
so we're eliminating the last line altogether.
We could. I think we were trying to make a point there.
Just substitute as zoning appeals for trustees.
Yeah, you're right, it's a bit redundant, but I think we're trying to make the point there that it just sort of adding that we thought about
Increases the
it.
skids a little bit,
Yeah, exactly.
that's all it does.
It helps BZA understand the intent of
Right.
the legislation too. Okay, so instead of Board of Trustees, it's going to be Board of Zoning Appeals.
On A.
Yep.
Okay,
That's the only change.
that's the only change.
So if we're looking at a new P, I suppose the title of it could easily be circulation system.
I was thinking sidewalks, but okay.
Well,
No, I'm sorry, I was just,
no, that's okay, it's just that it's.
Or pedestrian circulation. That's what we're talking about, right?
Right.
Pedestrian circulation, as opposed to like vehicular circulation.
okay.
Yeah, that would fit each of these sub-paragraphs.
It's all about pedestrians,
Uh-huh.
that's for sure.
I probably wouldn't go from O, or P rather, as the paragraph, to the subparagraphs A, B, C, D, E,
Right.
F, and G.
Oh, yeah, numbers
Number of them and then-
Little,
Yeah.
Little A.
two,
C, D.
well, oh no, you're right.
So
Yeah.
one AB,
Well, that'd be one,
Lowercase.
A, B, C, lowercase,
Right.
yeah.
And that would mean under paragraph A, 1, 2, 3, 4 would have to become something
A, B, C, D, lowercase, we got that one.
consistent with our pattern throughout the document, if there's a pattern.
There's a paper, so it's.
Where did this language come from, Tom? Were you able to,
from
where were you able to pirate this?
Westlake, Colorado, from Lakewood, Colorado.
I just assumed you got it off the top of your head.
I did.
That's,
Right after I
that's
read
great too.
Colorado's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's P. Insert.
It's really quite good. On the F, which will be actually 6. Minimum 5 feet in width. I just don't know, I don't know if that's,
They're kind of big for the 2 acre development.
I don't necessarily think so, especially if they can, if that's the standard, if there are factors that would mitigate that, they can go to BZA for something less, but I think the idea of having, if cars are, for example, encroaching into a parking space because they're overhanging onto overhanging a sidewalk area, that it's okay to make them another foot or so bigger, 2 feet bigger.
One of the things they look for in mixed use is the ease of movement for the pedestrians, so that they can take a look at shop fronts, go in and shop, or go where they want to go. If it's too crowded, then it becomes difficult for them to even stay there.
No, I get that. I understand.
Was there any, in your model that you looked at in Colorado or whatever, was there any reference to partially covered sidewalks or sidewalks in areas where there was inclement weather conditions generally, so as to keep them open in the bad weather? Because I noticed on those 3 ordinances from different towns that I sent you early on in this discussion, there was at least one of them that referenced covered, mandated covered sidewalks in certain instances.
Is that the one from Nome, Alaska?
No. I think there was one in Tennessee, and I think there was one in, I don't know what.
Arizona, Tucson? Can't remember. But there's so many, there was 3 or 4 that mandated coverings or awnings for pedestrian movement.
Okay.
So that's a possibility.
But one thing to be cautious of, I thought one of the things that we were looking at for an R7 is to give a potential developer at least some flexibility. If a developer comes to this commission and to the board of trustees with something that just looks absolutely ridiculous, it can be turned down. But if we put 1 million mandates on R7, nobody will ever do an R7 in Plain Township.
And my suggestion was only to find out whether other jurisdictions have said that, and maybe even adopt language that where feasible and due to inclement condition that would create some obstruction or difficulty, consideration be given to covering with awnings or other structure.
To me, that's something that maybe an architect or a planner might take into consideration. But, that's just a philosophical thing on my part. You don't want to have,
What I would do,
all right.
what I would suggest is that
under what is F on this,
All right.
internal sidewalks must be hard surface. I would bring that language up to what is B, paragraph B. Internal sidewalks there must be hard surface, comma, shall be barrier-free and unblocked at all times. And then, because they should be hard surface,
Yeah,
okay? And then, in my view, I would just delete D, E, F, and G. I don't like, to me, it's too rigid. So I'm proposing to preserve the hard surface concept, but bring it up under B. And then, as I said, I would just lose D, E, F, and G.
I kind of like E.
Wait, F, and you're taking out the rest of F, is what you're saying?
I'm taking out the rest, I'm taking out D, E, the rest of F, and G altogether. In my world. One size isn't gonna fit all, unfortunately.
And I hear you.
Yeah.
I like the idea of moving E, the part of F rather, up to where you talk about internal sidewalk regulations, just bring that up. I also think that would be a good point to include, to assure that the pedestrian and walkways remain barrier-free and unobstructed. Consideration should be given where feasible to awnings or covered walkways.
Okay, hold on. You lost me here. What section were you just reading from?
Okay, B
Yeah.
is internal sidewalks shall be barrier-free and unblocked at all times. Again, the covering, in my view, is to keep the snow and the ice and whatnot off of it, make sure they're passable and to make them pedestrian-friendly. If there isn't going to be a plan to, I mean, I don't know that a planner would necessarily be inclined to design in, where feasible, awnings or covered walkways unless there's something in the resolution that suggests that they do.
So you want some precatory language,
Yeah,
just to plant the seed.
yeah, that where feasible, it shall be, they'll include, and if it's not feasible, then the trustees have the option of looking at the plan when submitted, the final plan, to say, it's gonna be too cost prohibitive to do that, it's not feasible, we'll let them pass on that one. But I guess I want a planner to, or an applicant to consider that in their design.
Bill, M, the existing M, it talks about awnings. So, I mean,
But we haven't said anything other than, if you do awnings, this is what they should look like.
yeah.
It doesn't seem to be as big a stretch as one might think, is to say, you ought to consider awnings.
But what's the point of the language here that says you ought to consider it?
Where feasible.
If it's
Because
not-
that puts the burden on the applicant to show that it's really not feasible to do it.
Some people like me don't like to walk under awnings.
Really?
Yeah. Tall people. I'm discriminated against.
Okay, well, that's a point.
I'm dead serious.
Well, I wouldn't confuse the sections. If we're gonna look at, something like that, I would put it under existing M and not merge them. So if you want some sort of precatory language or awnings shall be provided where feasible, something to that effect, to me it goes in under M, not under this, the circulation system provision. I would.
Well, let's take a quick
I got awnings
couple.
as well.
Are you even inclined to have any suggestion of including awnings?
No, but I would do it under M, and I would do it not as a requisite, but rather as a,
Sorry, under L.
is that L now?
It's M on his, it's L on our base form.
You're right, thank you.
Wow.
Just trying to keep their
Yeah. I'm okay with it, as far as strongly encouraged. And where feasible, but I I don't see it as a requisite.
How do you feel about that? You're strongly opposed?
No,
Okay, no, you'd rather, I'm serious, I mean, it's okay, I hear
No, I mean,
Terry views it as extraneous, and he's
I
probably
do.
right.
surplus, okay.
yeah.
I'm willing to withdraw the issue if there's not consensus that we ought to address it, is what I'm saying. I'm willing to back away.
I think awnings are nice, but I don't know how necessary they are to the whole process.
It's nice that they get beat up, but during the winter they start looking crappy. I'm just,
I mean, I think if somebody wants to put that into their plan, we ought to say, hey, great, we talked to it. It should be in the plan. If somebody wants to leave it out because they want to put shade trees instead, okay, put in shade trees.
Well, we did digress away from our new subparagraph P, so I mean, I'll run us back into that.
Yeah, tell me what it says, because my notes are all over
The
the
way,
place.
in my view, under B, which would be 2, it would be internal sidewalks must be hard surface.
Well, shall be hard surfaced, comma, barrier free and unblocked at all times.
That's, and in my world, I would delete D, E, F, and G.
The rest of F and G.
Yeah, because my feeling is it's too restrictive.
Can I ask a question on that? I'm looking at it now, it's saying unblocked at all times. How about the restaurant that wants to put tables out in front?
Well, we have that,
yeah, we've already.
don't we? That part of outdoor display or not? Guess maybe not.
But is it, are we saying two different things?
You put tables out, I mean, that's an obstruction. I mean,
You need to have a bigger sidewalk, if they're gonna take,
Yes.
if they're gonna have 5 feet of sidewalk and put 4 feet of it in tables, they need to put another 5 feet of sidewalk out around it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I'm envisioning our requirement.
Okay.
Is that palatable to everyone?
Yep, to me it is.
All right, okay, I can live with that.
Yeah.
So we got no new P, pedestrian circulation.
Well, actually, I'd like to revisit the word pedestrian now. Because as I'm reading the first line, it does talk about on-site circulation systems to provide safe pedestrian paths throughout the site and shall integrate with adjacent properties and neighborhoods. We want the traffic, the vehicular traffic systems to integrate with adjacent properties and neighborhoods too. So do we want to restrict the title to just pedestrian circulation, or do you just want to say circulation systems as my colleague previously suggested, and I kind of,
I would say
Yes, that.
this is really focused in on sidewalks.
I would just call it sidewalks.
And if you want to talk about integrating with the roadways, you know, we separated out roadways, pedestrian, I mean, if you want to talk about integrating roadways with adjacent properties and neighborhoods, that should be a different section.
okay, so what is a circulation system if it's not a sidewalk?
Well, I was happy with sidewalk myself, but I
So
went ahead
we
with
change the
pedestrian
circulation
circulation.
system in the text of it to say sidewalk too?
Yeah, we gotta call it sidewalk. I mean, if it's
I'm okay with that.
we need words that would be
Sidewalks.
understandable by a cowboy from the 1850s.
Say pedestrian,
Sidewalks?
outside
You mean like wooden
sidewalks.
boardwalks in front of the saloon?
Maybe a
Just got what?
cowboy from the
Just
1880s.
On-site sidewalks.
On-site
For
sidewalks.
safe pedestrian paths throughout the site shall integrate with adjacent properties and neighborhoods. Old A becomes subsection 1,
And then we have small a, small b, small c.
Yes.
small d, that stays
Okay,
unchanged.
now, John proposed we keep B but move parts of F up to.
I'm just going to, it reads this way, it's real simple. Internal sidewalk shall be hard surfaced, comma, barrier free and unblocked at all times. Because he wants the rest of F gone anyway.
And I'm good with that.
We don't want to say a minimum of 5 feet in width.
What he's proposing is to take all that out. I'm not disagreeing with them, I'm saying that's the proposal
What I'm
we're
saying,
talking
what
about.
I'm suggesting to you, Steve, is that the ADA is going to apply, and so you're going to get your widths by virtue of that. I'm hesitant to put linear feet on anything as a member of this commission, because I just don't know.
Okay, can we say, shall be ADA compliant, hard surface?
I don't think you have to.
You don't
It has to be.
You don't have
It's
to,
built in,
you don't have
It's
to say
understood.
that.
should be
Do
understood.
you look at that, Tom, when you're reviewing a plan that gets presented to the trustees? And here's the trustees are asking you, Mr. Zoning Director, does this plan, this final plan that's being submitted to us, comply with ADA? Have you thought to actually check sidewalks to make sure they're ADA
We
compliant?
haven't had anything come through with sidewalks in it.
Okay.
No.
Okay. And so it may be redundant, but what I'm suggesting to you is that also for the cowboy that's coming through from 1880, trying to understand what he's supposed to do in his plan, at least it gives him a heads up at what we're looking for.
His architect would
If he
understand.
can afford to build this,
But
Yeah,
I would
we're done.
bet that the county building codes.
well, you're not going to be able to pull a permit.
Right. The county building codes would cover all the ADA compliant and the streets and sidewalks.
Internal sidewalks or just sidewalks along roadways?
Internal as well.
Heights of sidewalks,
The
heights of
develop,
curbing,
yeah, they have development standards.
Even the
Okay.
John.
even.
Yes.
And you look at those?
I think he counts
You
on
look
the
at
county.
those or
No,
does
they
the
do.
county does?
They do.
Okay, so I'm making your job harder
You're
unnecessarily.
making it really rough on me.
Okay, buddy, I don't want to do that. Okay.
The man's suffering enough.
All right, so,
Okay.
so old B as amended, one sentence long, no specific parameters, numerical parameters. What about old C, now to be numbered 3, sidewalk crossings?
I'm good with it.
Yeah,
Okay, how about old D, now numbered 4?
I would not have it.
I would concur with that, and I would say the same for E and G. Again, in part, because we'd like to encourage people to consider, I just don't want to chase people away.
Well, there's a standard that's met for just safety. Buildings, if you look at buildings that have a lot of alcoves in them, there's a lot of hiding places. You get a woman who's walking down the sidewalk, and it's in the evening, somebody jumps out, drags her back into an alcove that nobody has a view of, and there's a problem.
Okay, and that's what you're talking about with respect to D.
Yeah.
And I get that, that's,
I don't have a problem with D.
With which
Now that
one?
it explained the purpose of it.
D or E, which one?
D. I have no problem with D now that I'm understanding that
Okay.
what the intent is. And
Well,
it's-
why can't we just say that sidewalks shall be placed and sited so as to create a safe pedestrian environment, safe pedestrian environment? Boom. Doesn't necessarily have to be within view of a living area window.
No, it doesn't have to be. You can have sidewalks that are open to view of the public in general. If somebody's driving by, walking by, they can look down the entire sidewalk. That type of thing, as long as there's some view from the general public.
So public view, could we say are in public view or of at least one unit's living area windows? Would that change your view of the importance of D if we added sidewalks are in their public view or in view of at least one unit's living area windows?
No, it wouldn't change my view, because this is speaking, I think this paragraph was designed and drafted relative to multifamily residential buildings. That's not necessarily what we're restricted to in the mixed unit.
So sidewalks shall be designed to provide a safe pedestrian environment.
Shall be placed and sited so as to provide a
Hold on.
safe pedestrian environment. Period.
Placed and sited to provide a safe pedestrian environment. Is there some language, general language we can use to address Steve's concerns about them being,
For some reason, I guess I'm misunderstanding, Tom. Is this language, is this something that planners generally would be familiar with and say, oh yeah, that's what we want to do, that's a goal that we want to accomplish in our building design?
That, I don't know if all planners would be, it is not uncommon to have this anymore, because it is becoming more, people are becoming more conscious of the fact that sidewalks and buildings need to be more pedestrian safe.
And is this like a minimum standard? That at least the sidewalk can be seen from at least one window, so as to...
Really not a minimum, because what the minimum would be that sidewalk is in view of the street. There's no turns in it that would be hiding that. So the window is not.
make it hard for somebody to hide behind a corner.
Well, yeah, I don't, not to overemphasize it, but this provision was drafted in the context of a multifamily residential building. I get that. That makes a whole lot of sense to me in that context. But in the context of a mixed-use development, I think it would be overly restricted.
Well, the mixed use is purposely, I want to say vague, but it's purposely written so that it gives some leeway to the developers. When we're looking at the developer here, he wants to put a multifamily dwelling,
Well, I get that, but I'm just
but
saying.
a business as well.
If you're looking for leeway, you put it the way I suggested it, because it gives some discretion. Where you could, if you're looking at it on the board, you could look at it and say, look, I'm concerned about these nooks and crannies or these alcoves where you could have safety concerns, and what are you doing with lighting, for instance, or what are you doing with, and it invites the question of the topic. But if I'm a developer coming into it, I've got to make sure that internal sidewalks are in view, at least going into living area windows, you know.
Okay, and I hear what you're saying, and to the extent that it applies to all required internal sidewalks, I think that it's excessively restrictive. If we limited to the words, instead of so that all required, we said so that all adjoining internal sidewalks, referencing adjoining to the multifamily buildings, would that change your view of it?
No.
It wouldn't change my view either, in part because I'm not an architect, but if I were a resident of a building like this, I wouldn't want to have a window that looks out on to an internal sidewalk. It might make it less marketable. I mean, I think that something along the order of what John is suggesting, the emphasis on safety, but give the developer discretion on how that goal is achieved.
As well as the board, for that matter.
Correct. And the board of if the board of trustees, or the zoning commission has before it, a plan for an R7 that has a proposed internal sidewalk that is going to be dark, long, with plenty of opportunity for problems, the commission or the board of trustees can reject it.
Or require lighting, or require some other safety.
Exactly.
I'm comfortable with deferring the safety analysis to someone at the township level by the time the trustees are looking at the final plan. I'm not comfortable without stating at least that there needs to be some safety consideration and at least set forth some guidelines so that if there's a BZA application or an evaluation of a final plan, that there's some actual standard to apply. And I don't know, I like the idea, I hear what Tom's saying, I hear what you're all saying. Rather than belabor D, is that something we could consider till a little more till the next meeting?
We can talk about it at the next meeting.
Why don't we leave, right now, why don't we write up new number 4, old D, with, we can write it up, 2 alternatives, the simple one proposed by John, which I've read out already, and then leave the existing one as it is, so we can come back and look at that again. And we'll just, the next draft, we'll write up, have two alternatives to number 4. Sure. Okay, and then we can all think about it some more.
Sure.
All right?
Very good. E was proposed to be deleted.
Yes. Everything else was proposed to be deleted.
Yeah.
Do we not, is it not important, let me talk about E for a minute. Is it not important to make sure that the parallel walkway that's parallel to a drive aisle, in fact, be raised, landscaped, or other physical barrier? I think that actually dovetails with what we talked about, islands and whatnot being raised and landscaped. Why wouldn't a sidewalk, why wouldn't you want to differentiate that between the adjoining parking space, make sure that the cars can't just whip through the parking lot and drive up onto the sidewalk? Isn't that what we're basically, by raising, having the side, internal sidewalks raised, you're basically discouraging traffic from cutting through the walkways.
A visual barrier.
He's talking about a curved barrier.
Yes.
Well, that's visual.
A raised
Yeah,
curb,
you're right. You're right.
separated by raised curb, landscaping, or other physical barrier. Keep the cars in the lot, not up on the sidewalk. Is that a bad thing? I think that's a good
You
thing.
know, I recognize your point. I'm okay with
Okay, that one stays
Okay with
for
that.
now.
D, which is 5.
The rest of F is out, we already talked about that.
Well, F is all out now because we put the hard surface part up
Right,
in B.
right, F is all out.
Yep.
So old F is gone, and now we're looking at old G, which is now, we could maybe call 6.
That's excessive.
Okay,
We want
so
to
that's
have
out.
flexibility, right?
Yep,
Amen, amen, hallelujah.
okay, good. Takes care of that. Now we're on to section 7093.
Buffer zone. I'm okay with leaving 4R6 district in there. Never heard anything. Considering the move.
7096, what's that say?
The other,
Landscaping and screening regulations. Okay.
the other.
They're not arguing with policy there, they're just arguing with where we place it in the place.
And it's a logical place because builders are gonna look at the setbacks.
It belongs here. Belongs right where it's at.
Okay, I agree.
Okay.
They're not telling us to change the restriction, they're just saying put it somewhere else in your resolution.
We'll leave it right.
Okay, 709.4, the comma, sure, put the comma in.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to follow through here. Missed the
I missed it.
That changes the meaning of the whole thing completely.
Well, he got all the time. All right. So we want to change that to dwellings?
I don't think a comment, I
No,
don't
just
think
an
a
S.
comment is required there.
Dwellings.
No, it's within, it starts with prepositions, so it should be.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy with the
And
comment.
we're gonna get rid of, as we discussed earlier, we're not gonna keep repeating our 7-plan mixed use development district.
No, we've already talked about
There's a P
going through that,
going.
changing them.
I think the-
Multi-family dwellings pluralized, okay. Pluralize the offices, I'm okay with that.
1 second.
Facilities,
When you put these PUDs back in,
Yes.
let's be consistent. It's either PMUD or PMUD district.
just make it
Just- I would just use the
Just-
PMUD,
just-
forget about saying district.
Amen.
All right. Because I mean, it's, again, it's inconsistent all the way through. Okay, dwellings, we got an S. We're going to call it businesses and
well, also
facilities.
under residential congregation living facilities.
Yeah,
What are they suggesting there about considering size or any,
considering establishing,
Maximum size.
oh, okay, is that what that word is, max?
Yeah, for any question mark. I don't, why? I mean, there again, you're creating less flexibility.
Yeah, we don't like the plan, the trustees don't like the plan, they'll mix it, right?
There you go.
Office,
offices, actually, offices make sense.
and financial facilities.
Yeah, I've got financial, well, financial / banking facilities, right?
Yeah.
Financial / banking.
Banking facilities.
By the way, standalone doesn't look right to me. Is that a word without a dash?
I think that you need a dash or the two words have to be separated.
Let's put a dash in there.
Yeah. She's recommending taking it out.
See note below, which I can't read. Peers facilitate with drive-throughs.
Are conditionally
Usually permitted,
accessory
I
uses.
have nothing else.
So we don't want it as a permitted use.
So
You're right. She's right, there's a drive-up. We talked about drive-up and
Yeah.
pass-throughs. We should take it out.
she's saying, yeah, it's inconsistent
Okay.
to allow for
Agreed.
ATMs.
Take it out.
So we don't have to worry about whether it has a hyphen or not because we're deleting it.
Yep.
Good point.
Yay.
I still want to do no for general purposes.
I
I
think
think that's good, so I'll read the next.
Restaurants, okay, restaurants with inside
Hospitals.
or outside seating, okay, sure. Then the ATM would come out, I suppose.
Well, I was thinking a walk-up ATM. So,
So you would just,
So we want to change
walk up
drive?
ATM,
pedestrian ATM or something, or...
What's the matter with changing drive to walk? Standalone walk-up automated teller machines.
well, it's standalone, it's almost necessarily a drive-up.
Yeah.
Is it?
Well, no, they have them set up where it's just pedestrian. We can take it out, but I was thinking of just pedestrian. You shop
Like a pop machine that's an ATM sitting out next to the sidewalk?
If you take it out, you're just making it a conditionally permitted accessory use, and, right, so you can always do it.
Yeah.
So we're taking out ATM?
And yes, in Vegas, they do have ATMs around town. You can just walk up to it and get more money.
I think Cleveland has them near the casino.
Yeah, I think they do.
Okay, so that's
We're
coming out.
building into the wall of a building.
No, they're,
Come up to
they're,
it.
you can find them in, yeah, they use ATMs that are away from banks. They're all over the place if you look, know where to look for them.
So are we taking ATM out?
I don't know if he just will qualify with walk-up ATM.
Do we want the walk-up ATM to be part of another permitted use, In other words, built into the wall of a permitted use, like a store or a bank or whatever, or do we want to allow a freestanding automated teller as a separate permitted use?
If I could throw a thought out, now, I'm thinking, maybe it shouldn't be in there at all. ATMs that are outside of
I've already crossed it off.
outside of view become in danger, because the criminals put cameras on there, they find out what your PIN number is. They do all kinds of things, because when everything closes, they can play with this machine. So maybe an ATM shouldn't be.
I think take it out.
Okay, I agree, take it out.
It's gone.
Okay. So then we have planned office complexes, plural, hospitals and medical clinics, plural, in that same.
I'm sorry, what?
We're pluralizing the whole uses category. So after we deleted the standalone drive-ups, we are now pluralizing the next line, planned office complexes,
Complexes.
Hospitals,
Slash
medical
medical clinics.
And then you gotta do the same with all the retail and service uses.
Establishments, restaurants, ordinaire, services, stores, restaurants.
We want to get rid of ATM?
Yeah, I
also?
already did.
Okay.
I think that's, oh, personal service, more personal services,
And that's a defined term in the code.
complexes, schools, hospital, clinics, I put veterinary hospital, anytime, veterinary hospital slash animal clinics. They recommend deleting overnight boarding kennels.
And that's something I raised the last time with respect to both veterinary hospitals, clinics, and kennels. I could go either way on
I'm
that.
okay taking kennels out.
Sure. Okay.
What's the objection? Just, not that I'm an animal hater or a lover, I'm just wondering, are we trying to discourage, a noisy, obnoxious activity? Or if that's, or if you don't consider that, are we trying to?
The danger of having someone use this classification as a pretext just to get a kennel going.
Yeah, few pit bulls, Dobermans.
One of the reasons that it's there is to keep the driving down to a minimum. It offers, if they do have a kennel and they live over here, they can walk the dog over when they go on vacation
I see.
rather than drive. That's
So
the reason.
it's an amenity to the residents that are living
Yes.
in the mixed-use
Yes.
community.
Exactly, like that. I read it like I can run a kennel.
I would agree with RPC.
Take it out. Okay.
Okay.
Car wash facilities, parking lots as principal use. Car wash facilities, verify first.
Yeah, and this relates in their letter, they talk about in, I think it's paragraph 10 in their letter.
I would tend to agree with them.
Well, what are we going to say?
I don't agree, I agree with the car wash deleting it, because I think that invites unwelcome, lines of traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as far as parking lots or automobile parking garages, that actually might be a flexible tool that a developer might need in getting sufficient parking out of a smaller site when he has appropriate other uses.
You want to put an underground parking in your apartment building.
But if I'm not mistaken, I mean, you're going to have parking requirements for any kind of development. They're talking about a parking lot as a principal use. I view that as like
An
a
accessory
commercial.
use?
A commercial parking garage.
That's somebody buying a corner and or a block and setting up a parking lot strictly for, if it's part of the accessory
Of course,
to
you
the
get one owner,
building.
the whole thing.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. What if you have a couple of restaurants and a senior center and you have X amount of parking, but you want to have the ability for others to come in and use those restaurants and whatnot, and you need to have some extra parking for them that's not going to clog up your pedestrian walkway areas and other things. Wouldn't it be okay to put a parking
Wouldn't that be accessory to
accessory to what?
the business?
Yeah. You see, off permitted accessory uses, off-street parking is regulated by Article 9, Section 901.
Okay, so if we put off-street parking, parking lots, or parking garages down there where it says off-street parking, can we just eliminate vehicular services altogether?
We could. We could. What do you think, John?
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
What about the idea, you can have, like, you put an individually residential unit can have its own garage, right?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Well, then, yeah, I don't see, take the whole thing out.
So we're eliminating the whole category of vehicular services.
Yep.
Yes.
Just thinking about,
And are we carrying in or adding in under B, permitted accessory uses, off-street parking, comma, parking lots, and parking garages as regulated by Article 9?
what does Article 9, Section 901 say?
I think it's a criteria for it.
901 has, 901, what 901 does is talk about spaces. It does not break down whether those spaces are to be provided with a lot, or with surface parking or a garage. So I would just say off-street parking as regulated by Article 9, Section 901.
So we're not putting parking lot or garages anywhere,
I don't think it's needed.
okay? I'll defer on that one.
Do we want to do anything with their comments that,
Single dwelling or commercial?
no, churches and comment about it's getting late.
Yeah, it is.
Did we do enough tonight?
Well, I'm gonna suggest that we stop before we get to comment with the space requirements.
You want to hammer out through the end of page 5?
That's what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
I think that's a darn good
That's an
suggestion.
excellent suggestion.
Why, I thought I saw a suggestion that they had the effect of making the churches permitted use, that child daycare centers. Did I just dream that? I don't think so.
I don't see it.
good thought.
I don't know, John.
Oh, yeah, good. I mean,
Yeah, township should also consider making churches a permitted use, as opposed to a conditionally permitted use.
under their facts to be considered, it says, to promote the live-work environment of a mixed use, it is recommended that daycares be included in the list of permitted uses and to consider making churches permitted use as opposed to a conditionally permitted use in keeping with other zoning districts within the township.
And they're looking at the live-work model.
Yeah, I'm kind of buying into the suggestion, particularly with respect to daycare, I suppose, but.
So, like to replace vehicular services with,
Churches and daycares.
well, why don't we just add that to one of the existing sections that, churches and, I think we're at that, have a whole new section, won't we?
Or we could just have churches.
Instead of kennels.
Daycares.
Daycares.
Well, I mean,
Retail and service uses?
well, whether churches and daycares are unconditionally permitted or conditionally permitted is the question. Yeah, I mean, in terms of maximum flexibility for a developer, the developer would probably prefer to have them as permitted uses. I mean,
They don't make the developer any money, so I don't.
Oh, they have the churches that rent storefronts that have to, I don't know if they're used all week long, but they have to pay rent on them.
They don't have to pay a whole lot. John is right.
Well, I'm just looking under retail and service uses, we got,
They don't pay any property taxes.
we could put licensed daycare facilities in there.
Where are you talking now?
Just part of retail and service uses, licensed daycare facilities.
Good there, that would fit, sure.
I'm putting it right above personal services because that's where I have room.
Okay, that sounds good.
Where do we put churches? We put them in the same place, or we can give them their own category.
It almost doesn't matter because I just don't envision anybody ever submitting a plan with a church.
Church in mind.
Let's leave that out then.
Okay.
Okay, licensed daycare facility.
Unless Oral Roberts wants to do something here, or is he dead?
I think so.
Oh, Ernest Ames.
Well, you can have some sort of religious affiliated, no, you can have some sort of religious affiliated commercial enterprise. It's a kind of a blended Christian community or something. Or I can envision the possibility of something like that.
Former judge who runs a wedding center and a limo service?
That's Mr. Rams there.
Rams.
I didn't say that.
God bless his soul.
Oh, yeah.
I like putting church in the same listing with daycare facility.
But if it's a-
Religious
but if it's a-
institution?
But if it's a conditionally permitted use, does that,
No, we're gonna get rid of it, the condition and put it in as a permitted use. Up there by personal services, we had a daycare facility.
Daycare facility, licensed daycare
Licensed daycare
facilities.
facilities.
I'm okay with adding a church as a permitted use. I would just be stunned if we ever see a church included in a plan.
put it up there.
Put it in, okay.
Put it up there.
And we deleted kennel.
Churches, we took out kennel and put in churches.
Either be churches and other buildings for the purpose of religious worship.
Right, right.
Other
Right, because there are religions that don't have churches.
building, well, we can, well,
The way it reads under C.
under C.
Number one, the conditional one.
Oh, church is another building. Oh, no, okay,
And
we're
we
gonna move that up.
to kennels, which we deleted.
I'm sorry, I was still looking at comment number 8 from the letter on too many pieces of paper. Okay, I'll move that up and put it under licensed daycare.
Okay.
I'm gonna renumber the remaining ones in C. I'm gonna change private to, we're gonna take private out and just capitalize outdoor under recreational uses.
Yeah, I think so.
Sounds good to me. I like similar instead of like.
That's the lawyer in you.
Yeah, can we take out, or can we add that commas after, or in that same section, yeah? B, after Article 9.
Yeah,
third line.
you're right. And
Article 9, Section 901, Article 8, Section, yeah, okay.
and also after Article 8 in this.
Yeah, got it.
And you don't even need the comma after signs, I don't believe.
Nope, you're correct, we do not.
No, I'm sorry, the last line on there where it says any other use would be uses. Are we pluralizing everything?
Well, I think it's fine the way it is. Either way, it doesn't bother me.
Okay, fine. All right. So now we're conditionally permitted uses?
Yep.
One is gone.
Yep,
We moved it.
is moved. And the rest
Two becomes one.
everything else just moves, number changes, moves up.
Do we really want to allow solar energy system? I guess we do, didn't we?
We've spent a lot of time and effort put on solar
Okay.
systems.
Okay.
Do we have to reference the amendment number 551? Under what's new paragraph 3, effective 4/11/13, do we really need to do that?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay.
I mean, if 155 is in there, it's in there.
It's in there.
It's amended.
Yeah, other than you're restricting it to what it is forever to that, I think. Or if you amend it again.
And we want any future amendments to also apply, so we would delete that.
I think so.
Right.
Okay.
Just, you know,
Okay, having gotten through the first 5 pages, which is really pretty considerable, I would move that we table.
All right, hold on, I gotta get back to that piece of paper. Do I need to sign this? No, we're not done with that yet. Okay. So we're going to So we've been under a motion.
To approve the way it was submitted.
And that was seconded, and we're in discussion.
We're in discussion, so
So
we'll take a friendly amendment to
Moving to table the motion.
John. Table. Second.
Second.
and that is a motion and a second to table the amendment for further discussion at our next meeting, correct?
Do we have a next scheduled meeting, or do we want to say that in our motion now?
Have one in September.
We have a regular schedule coming up in September.
But no other matters on the agenda yet?
Nothing.
Could I, this may go without saying, but could I suggest that once Tom and I put together what we think has been done so far, that we share it via email with everybody in between, and that everyone verify their email address before they leave today?
Yeah, and I guess what I'd like to do too is, I'd like, once you get a hold of RPC and we get their final recommendation, we know we then have the triggering event that would allow us to go forward and properly deliberate on the amendment. And I would leave it to the chairman to notify us when the next meeting would be, and if you want to do a straw poll ahead of time or something.
I believe the next meeting is going to be September 10th.
Is that what it's going to be? Okay. Okay.
Is that right, the 10th?
That's a month.
Well,
Okay, that's fine.
at this point,
I think there's nothing pressing.
There's a
There's
motion and a second.
There's a motion and a second pending. Mr. Zoning Director, can you call the roll?
Mr. Harrison.
Yes.
Mr. Crawford.
yes.
Mr. Rambecker.
Yes.
Mr. Seeberger.
Yes. Any announcements?
No announcements.
Okay, at
Move to adjourn.
7:57 PM, do you second that?
No, I don't second it yet. I'm actually wanting to make sure we get a written withdrawal signed by, to confirm the email from the.
Yeah, confirm the withdrawal.
Yeah, so we actually get a written withdrawal of the, well, let's call it the Oakwood Plaza, for lack of a better summary.
Subject.
Now I'll second the motion to adjourn.
Okay, and the motion and second to adjourn are to adjourn this meeting without prejudice to a further consideration of the proposed R7 district. Is that correct?
Right.
That's correct.
Okay, can you call the roll?
Mr. Harrison.
Yes.
Mr. Crawford.
Yes.
Mr. Rumbacker.
Yes.
Mr. Seeberger.
Yes.
Gentlemen, thank you. That was productive.
Yes, it was.
Thank you.